Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Keti Tsatsalashvili, and I'm a host of today's panel discussion of Ukraine and the world chess. 22nd of February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, and we woke up in a different reality and different life where we have to deal, and we are all curious where chess world stands. I'm honored to invite and introduce our guests today. We have FIDE Director General Emil Sutovsky today with us, Yuri Garrett, ACP Board Director, Theodoros Tsorbatzoglou, ACU Secretary General, as well as Grandmaster and the coach Peter Heine Nielsen, and Grandmaster and the author Jacob Aagaard, and Grandmaster and publicist Daniel Gormally. Welcome everyone at this show, and I hope that this will be a very constructive panel discussion, and I hope that we can somehow just bring a general opinion of chess world to our viewers who are just joining us at Twitch. Of course, we also invite our viewers, Twitch viewers, to ask some questions and get involved into the debates. We are starting our discussion with the statement of FIDE, which was introduced. This is the latest statement where FIDE says that Russia and Belarus teams suspended from FIDE competitions. I'm quoting, taking into account the current recommendations of IOC, the FIDE Council suspends the national teams of Russia and Belarus from participation in official FIDE tournaments until further notice. In the individual tournaments of FIDE World Championship cycle, players from those countries will be able to participate under FIDE flag. So this is the statement we just found about this this morning. So my first question goes to Peter. What do you think about this decision? Do you agree with this, or what should be further actions? What can be added to this?
First of all, I would like to say that Ukraine was invaded by Russia in 2014. When they annexed Crimea. So I think that is an important point to make. But about the FIDE statement, well, the FIDE statement says they are following IOC recommendations, but I wrote to, I think they called Play the Game today, who stated that, well, this is very much a truth with moderations. IOC's general statement, if you look at it, it says a ban to Russian and Belarusian athletes. Then there is possible exceptions. But I think that, well, to state that we are following IOC recommendations is very much a truth with a lot of modifications.
Yes, I would love to ask Mr. Sutovsky how these decisions were made at FIDE. And what are your thoughts, personal thoughts about the topic?
Well, I think the decision about suspending teams was logical and correct. I think after invading Ukraine, it was clear that the teams that represent the state should be barred from participation in the events of like Olympiad or World Teams. At the same time, as you see the individual athletes, we believe that the practice should be different, because chess, contrary to most of other sports, is not exactly a team competition. And we know that many Russian players, most of the leading Russian players, expressed their clear and principled stance against the action taken by their government. And actually by doing so, they're risking pretty much. Let's not pretend that Russia is a democracy where you can really express what you think. They are risking their, I would say, their life or freedom, but they're definitely risking a lot by stating it. And we believe that it would be unfair to bar them from competition. And but at the same time, they should not be continuing and representing Russia, but rather play under FIDE. I think that's fair. Once again, that is not a decision that would be unanimously going with all the Russian players. And as mentioned already previously, and the decision taken 2 weeks ago, most prominent pro-war players, like it was the case with Sergei Karyakin and the renowned commentator Sergei Shipov, were actually submitted to Ethics and Disciplinary Commission of FIDE, because they have been not only like supporters, they were like really into the mode which really undermines the value of sport, of chess, and I think brings disrepute to chess as well. But it's not for me to decide. The Ethics Commission has to say what they feel about it. Anyways, I think the decision is balanced. And if you look at other federations, Peter did mention IOC recommendations. There are federations which are more strict or less strict. There are federations, even like swimming federation, which has a lot of participation, that didn't deprive any Russian or Belarusian athletes from participation. There are federations which go more or less in line with what we have done. And the most striking example probably tennis, which could be equal to chess. It's a game of individuals, but sometimes they are playing as a team. So no Russian or Belarusian team is in Davis Cup, for example, but nothing prevents Daniil Medvedev to compete. So that's more or less in line with what we did, and I think it's fair and balanced solution.
There are some opinions that just to ban the national teams from the competition is not enough, and the players should also be banned. Jacob Aagaard, what's your opinion about this? What do you think personally?
Unmuted. Good. So first of all, I want to say what I think everyone agrees that there is no hate. There's no hate to Russian players. There's no changed feelings towards the Russian players because of this is happening. And the idea that this is about punishing players is simply a misrepresentation. That's the first thing, which was not accurate at what Emil was saying. The second thing was he was saying that chess is unique because it's an individual sport. Most IOC sports are individual sports. Athletics is almost entirely individual sports. He also clearly avoided the question about officials, which IOC says she should get out of. Russian and Belarusian officials should be excluded. So we will need answers on all these things and not slippery ones, please. My point of view is that there cannot in this situation be Russian sports heroes. And we have very recently had a World Championship match played with the FIDE flag. I was not personally there. I have only heard reports from friends who were there. I know some of the people here were there. But the reports I heard from people who were there was that there was a very strong Russian, nationality, pride and feeling going on, while we had a player playing with a FIDE flag. So my problem with this is, and it's all along, it's simply about Russia cannot have a huge status in international society. And I know Emil elsewhere has said that we should not mix politics and sports. I agree, but can he please also agree with me that genocide is not politics? Because this is really a different issue. And I think I asked him enough questions, so he should have a chance to reply.
Please, Mr. Sutovsky.
Well, obviously, I'm ready to answer all questions one by one. I'm sorry if it will take a bit more time. First of all, the situation is completely different from Dubai, because Ian Nepomniachtchi did not play under FIDE flag. Jacob, please do some fact checking, please. He played under the flag of the Russian Chess Federation, which is different. And the flag of Russian Chess Federation has the colors of Russian Federation and so on, similar to what was in Olympiad, where they played under the flag of Russian Olympic Committee. Here, we are not talking about it. It's about playing under FIDE flag. About Russian sponsors, I totally agree. I think in Dubai, Russian sponsors were visible, but it's just okay. I tried to shorten my speech, but as you know, the ties with Russian sponsors have been also terminated and severed. I think most of them, apart of one, maybe has gone at this point. Terminated with an immediate effect, even the contracts which were running. It cost FIDE some serious money, but contrary to what people were saying, that FIDE lives on Russian money, we could afford it to ourselves because we felt it's the right way to do. So it has been terminated, and it has not, and it will not appear. Now, I did not claim that chess is unique. I just said that it has its own nature. It's different from other sports, and I compared it to tennis. It's rather similar to tennis. Right? There are some sports like athletics where they banned it outright, but in general, I think we are sticking with the spirit of recommendations. And now talking about larger steps. Now, it has to be said, and I want to be very clear and explicit about it. FIDE is a global chess federation. We unite 190, it counts by the day, I don't know, 196, 197 nations. And the paradigm which has been always conveyed is basically almost entirely Judeo-Christian view of things. But that's not exactly what FIDE is. I mean, even this panel, with all the due respect, I mean, you don't see any representative from Asia or South America or Africa here. How do you know what people there think about it? You just represent important and very important views. But people are saying various things. It's not like the opinion has been not only unanimous, but largely in favor of excluding Russian players as altogether. I would say that even during the meetings we had, internal meetings, consultations with national chess federations, most of federations outside of Europe and Northern America, they would not support, even excluding the Russian national team or Belarusian national team. What FIDE did was actually a responsible move. We could have started questioning a number of federations, what they think if the Russian team should be excluded from Olympiad or not. No, but we didn't go down this path. We felt that it's the right way to do. But once again, this, let's say, banning players altogether, and we're talking about thousands or maybe tens of thousands of Russian players altogether. Now, if we talk about the official cycle, it's much less, obviously. But in general, if we start imposing this ban on profession, and Ukrainian players demand every Russian player should not be eligible to play any open competition, any international competition, any rating competition. Now, I would not be criticizing one iota of a proposal by Ukrainian players. I may disagree, I may think that they are wrong, but they are in their right. They're under rockets, they have been invaded, they have fled their houses, they feel so angered now that they have to be listened to, but not necessarily all what they want to fulfill. One Ukrainian grandmaster went as far as to claiming on Facebook, like, Russia is a nation of killers, is exact quote, and it was liked by a dozen of other his Ukrainian colleagues. We should not go down this path. I'm sorry. I have every word of condemnation of Russian policy in Ukraine. I will not mince words about it. At the same time, you cannot punish and strive to punish any Russian. Every Russian related to the country, just to the fact of his or her citizenship. I think there is a big difference between a person who is representing country and players. Now, about officials, the point you raise is important. I think that's something that not FIDE Council, but this exactly a point which FIDE national chess federations will have a say about it. That's why we have a general assembly to discuss this situation. And I think there are pros and cons, but I have to say that if we're not naming for some reason Mr. Djokovic, I will name him, obviously. He's in power for, what, 3.5 years. And I would ask you, the accusations like he would be very pro-Russian and his impact would be, as a former deputy prime minister in Russia, would be heavily pro-Russian, came way before elections. But sorry, where did you notice it in 3.5 years? What was maybe decisions which were like pro-Russian? Actually, in Russia, he was criticized by awarding to India the second set of gold medals, for example, in online Olympiad. Was there any decisions that impacted that? I think all our programs, not only for professional chess, but social, educational, development, they have been very much from the very beginning oriented to nearly every continent and every country. And one thing which Peter mentioned, I wanted to address it because it's very important in the context. Peter says, the war started 8 years ago in 2014, Russia has invaded Crimea. I agree. But let us think differently. What happened to the entire world? What was the entire world doing for all 8 years like that? I mean, if you feel it was a real war, why do you not stop trading? You do not impose sanctions. So you don't feel it's a real war. You just call it a war. If it is not a real, then treat it or treat it otherwise. As for the genocide, last point, I'm not quite sure about the definitions here. Genocide is something more about ethnicity and not nation. Let's say Russians, like it or not, they're killing people in south and east of Ukraine. Half of the populations are ethnic Russians there. It's just complete madness. But it's not about a genocide. It's maybe whatever, call it whatever, but it's not about killing Ukrainians for their ethnicity, but for belonging to the nation. Of course, you can call it that is diverted against nations. But once again, I'm not going to protect Russians' policy. But once again, we are here on the slippery path when we start discussing genocide and the responsibility of particular players from the country for their government. Russian players, some of them have or are they Ukrainians or they have Ukrainian roots, or half of them, I don't know. Like Kostyanyuk or Grishchuk, they have expressed themselves very clearly. So does it really talk about the Ukrainian ethnicity? No, not really. It's about nations, not the ethnic cleansing or something. But once again, it's very difficult here to find a balance. FIDE has to be responsible in that, and of course, it's the easiest solution just to cross everyone. You're Russian, you cannot participate, full stop. But it doesn't work this way. I think it doesn't work. I think the collective punishment doesn't work. I think that the right of players to exist, to participate, especially when they were expressing and so bravely their stance. Once again, the opinions may differ here. Sorry for taking too long.
Thank you very much, Emil Sutovsky. My next question goes to Theodoros Tsorbatzoglou, who is the Secretary General of European Chess Union, who was the first chess union who made their statement about the Russian and Belarusian players. And please let us know how the decision was made and what is ECU's statement, as a lot of number of the participants of the ECU tournaments comes from Russia.
Hi, Keti. Yes, I will need maybe 3-5 minutes to explain all, because I will also refer to some things already discussed. And of course, I will refer mostly to the ECU decisions, because I'm representing here ECU and not myself or my personal opinions. So, first of all, I want to explain what are the IOC exact recommendations and decisions, because I think that perhaps there are in some parts, some confusions. There is one decision, recommendation decision of IOC that published 28th of February. This was one day after FIDE make first decisions on 27th of February, FIDE Council. I was observer of this council. Then the next day, IOC published other decisions, recommendations, and partly annulled the decision that was taken by FIDE the previous day. For example, IOC said that you cannot use even logo of federation with colors and all these things. Okay, this happens the next day. That also recommended that all athletes and teams should be suspended. After the decision of FIDE, after the decision of IOC, of course, IOC says also that officials like arbiters, like that they have appeals, all these officials that they have some role in one international event should not also go from Russia or Belarus. IOC, I noticed, didn't say yet that officials from Russia that they are elected in international federations should be suspended. Okay, I note this because I read all IOC. There is a letter, very detailed letter that Thomas Bach sent and published, if you don't read it, on 11th of March. This is the last statement and very detailed by IOC. And there he explained a lot of things about current IOC position. And I want to say for individuals that many people are understanding wrong. IOC, because ECU wants to follow to every detail IOC, doesn't blame any Russian athlete and any Russian individual, the opposite. But why they are proposing this ban, they have three reasons. And also Sebastian Coe make also the same statements and explanation. They say that the moment that the Ukrainian athletes are defending their homes, they cannot play, they cannot prepare, they lose their families, the same time we cannot allow the Russian athletes to compete for titles. So they ask solidarity and they ask some equal conditions. This is the first reasoning of IOC, not that one Russian athlete has any blame. This is what IOC says. The second is that IOC is afraid, and happened to IOC this, that will be boycotting if Russian athletes, and this happened in Paralympics because IOC gave an exception to Paralympics, and maybe you witnessed what happened. The Russian players went there, and 10, 20 countries said that we are leaving, and then the last day, this Paralympic committee decided not to accept the Russian delegation. Something similar happened, and maybe with the World Chess Team Championship in Israel, that we have some reaction from some teams. So this is the second reason that IOC put this question, and there is a third reason that IOC says that we want to protect Russian and Belarusian athletes because now there are a lot of feelings that maybe will attract and some, let's say, kind of attacks to Russian athletes and Belarus that they're competing in national events. So this is the three reasons that Thomas Bach explained why IOC asked this. So this should be clear, no blame to any individual. So based on this instruction by IOC, ECU make a meeting, a very big meeting. We were about 20 persons from different federations because not only board, it was directors, some observers that they wanted to be, for example, Malcolm Payne, Peter Wies from Switzerland, and also asked to address us the Ukrainian Chess Federation president that he addressed all his demands. In the first hour of the meeting, we have a 5 hours meeting, and we discuss a lot about all this matter till we make the final decisions. So, what ECU decided? For ECU has important what FIDE decided, what is the FIDE regulations, what IOC decided, but very important role in our decision played that currently in the Russian Federation Supervisory Board, that is a status by status, let's say, organ, they are taking part members of Russian Security Council, namely Mr. Peskov, that is president of this council, and Mr. Shoigu, that is also the Minister of Defense. And we don't comment, I cannot comment as ECU, I mean, about the work that Mr. Peskov or Minister of Defense of Russia make for their duties. The same will be for any Minister of Defense. The minister will be from any country, even if it was a Minister of Defense of Ukraine, of Greece, and then so. The problem here is that some of our federations are political exposed, and I will say in that case, war exposed. So you understand that when one player is playing for one federation, is representing also and all these people that they are in the federation. And we know also that the Russian Federation has another management board and this board also, but they are board of trustees. This is a very important and honorary, let's say, board that it is in one federation. So this play important roles also consciously to us. So what we decide? We decide that, of course, Russian teams and Belarusians cannot play. Russian officials, they cannot be arbiters or appeals committee and all these things, and all these tasks. And for the individual play, after a lot of discussion, and while is IOC annual the number 2 of decision of FIDE that make on 25 of February, we went to number 3. What was the number 3? That, and this also is very important to understand of the people. The sports federations cannot punish passports or nationalities. The sports federations are sanction the sports identity. This is very important legal and practical matter that everybody should understand. When somebody is shouting, ban all Russians, ban all Belarusians, he must explain in the sports world what exactly means this. For example, UEFA and FIFA, very strict. They ban all Russian clubs and teams, but they didn't ban Russian players to play with other clubs. This is exactly, they ban the sports identity of Russian clubs and the Russian national team. They didn't ban the passport of the player that play in Italy or and so. I want everybody to understand this. The sports federation ban sports identity, not passports. These passports can ban only political organizations. Continuing on this, FIDE, what is the difference between FIDE and other sports federations? In the big sports federations, to transfer to another federation, it's very difficult, needs a lot of time. But in FIDE, we decided, and the General Assembly decided a long time ago, that this transfer should be easier in chess altogether. At the same time, FIDE has one article, long time now. This is the article B15.1. That where is the 14.1, sorry, for B4.11. And this is where is EU decision based. What is this article said? That if one player wants to abandon his or her federation, can transfer to FIDE flag and continue his or her career under after the FIDE Council decision. So this is an article that used by Firuza when he left from Iranian Federation, used from Kovalev and Sorokina when they are chess refugees, and now could be used for some Russian players that they want to do this. So these people that are going to this article, they abandon their federation and going to FIDE flag, ECU will allow them to play for 2 reasons. First of all, because I think that it will be not logical today to ask us, for example, to ban Sorokina, Kovalev, and all other people to choose this way. Because exactly they are changing their sport ID. Secondly, legally we cannot ban them. Third, if we ban these players that they choose this way, we are going against FIDE handbook and regulations that voted by a General Assembly. This exactly thing I explained before one day to Dutch Federation that make one announcement. They sent us a very kind letter that they are very happy and they agree with 90% of what ECU decided, but they want something more about user players. I explained them the situation, and after some hours came a second letter and said, we agree 100% with ECU. So ECU position is this currently, because also this is Theodoros' question, that players can play as far they change their sports identity. We ban already the Belarus and Russian, we temporarily suspend exactly, not ban, the Russian and the Belarus suspension. Concerning FIDE decision of today, I think needs more clarifications because it's very, the one part about teams is clear. The second part about individuals should be more, I think we need more details, what happens, because the difference till now between FIDE and ECU is the following. For example, Alexander Gritsuk playing now in Belgrade with FIDE flag, I think. But Gritsuk go to an interview during his play that also retweeted, and I don't think maybe from official, I said, I'm Russian, I want to play for Russian flag, nobody asked me to put me another flag. So this is against IOC policy, because IOC, what he say, they cannot play with this identity. So ECU cannot force a player to give him a flag. ECU says that if a player wants to change federation to transfer to FIDE flag, with his willing, with procedure that announced by FIDE, is welcome. But the other choice that remains to Russian Federation and to change him flag by force, that is a little bit technical, this is not possible to happen in ECU. So this I want to explain the difference. The FIDE decisions, I think that will be explained and analyzed the following days for each case, what exactly it is. So this I want to say as first, and I hope that I explained some things. Of course, there are many, many others. And thank you for the time that you gave me, Keti.
Thank you very much. There was well explained all the ECU actions and the decisions. And very quickly, I would like to show now to everyone and our viewers this statement that Russian chess players has sent to the president, Vladimir Putin, where they mentioned that they are against the war and the war should be stopped. And here we have the names of the world champions, the challengers, and very strong grandmasters who spoke out, who signed this document and who sent it to their president to stop the violation and stop the war. This document is free for everyone and can be checked in internet. We all know how challenging this is for all the chess players, and it took some time for them to speak out, some of them. For instance, Jan Nepomniachtchi was one of the first who speak out. Also, Grishik had some difficulties to find the right words to express his opinion about this. So my question is to Mr. Yuri Garrett, ACP board director. Do you think that these players will struggle in the future to play for chess events? And do you see that we might face some crisis in chess world, as usually we do have a lot of number of the Russian participants in the events? And yes, we understand that they can play under FIDE flag. They cannot play at the team competitions, but what about the visa issues? They will also have these issues for traveling, as some of them already facing at the Grand Prix. They had to change the tickets and make a lot of flights. So the question is, do you see we might face the chess crisis in the near future? Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, I'll go again. Great. I will, if I had an answer to your question, I wouldn't be here. I would be somewhere trying to become a millionaire with the Poles. The situation is changing every day. as much as I sympathize and I like what we're doing, and I think this is precisely ACP's role today, ACP has changed the role, I must say I do not sympathize too much when we try and make it such a big thing whether Russian players will be able to travel abroad and play. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jacob didn't mean to use the word genocide in the technical term. What he meant is this is mass murder. This is homicide on a super vast scale. Now, sorry if a visa is not my main concern at the moment, but I like to talk about something different. And this is, you just mentioned the difficulty that Grishuk found in finding the right words. Now, I, as a son of Jewish family, at least half of it, and I have World War II ingrained in my blood and bones, and I have been passing most of my life reading about it and what happened, and I was always in admiration of the people who stood up. In my country, I'm Italian. There are many Italians who stood up against the fascists. They spoke up when it was impossible. Now, I would like you to consider what these Russian players are going through. By simply using the word war, they are risking 15 years. But 15 years is nothing. These people have probably the political police knocking at their door. I have a friend who posted on Facebook, she is a famous poet, that she received a visit from policemen, making sure that she would not go for a walk that day. These things are happening in Russia most likely every minute. And here you have dozens of bold Russian grandmasters speaking out. Well, my sincere admiration for them. They are really risking their life. A visa, playing, we'll sort that out later. We have tanks in the streets. They are bombarding, they are shelling, they're everything. It's the scale of what is happening is huge, and we're thinking visas? No, this is not what I think is right. There's also one thing, the situation when there's another brave man. He's not risking his life, but he took a great stand today by coming and talking to us. This is Emil. Emil, thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate it. You are under crossfire from everyone, and I have been really sleepless only to find the words for what I'm going to say today. And I just imagine how hard it must be for you. For one, today, if we look at our faces, we are all from the West. More or less from the West. Keti is a little bit east, but not that much. But FIDE is a world organization. And perspectives on what is happening change depending on where you look at it from. And it's very easy for us to go the Western way. We are all very much involved. I think we all share common view of what is happening. And but FIDE is a different thing. And we've had similar situations in the past. I mean, think of the Iran-Iraq war, or UK-Argentina, or the Balkans, or the Turkish and the Greek and Cyprus and everything. And I don't think people died by the millions in these wars. And it was never called a ban on individuals. So I do think that for now, FIDE is doing the right thing by banning officially Russia and letting individuals play. I understand things can get worse, and I would not oppose if things went worse. But for the time being, especially if the players spontaneously ask to play under the FIDE flag, which is already very difficult for them. Just imagine what it means to be a Russian grandmaster and to say, I want to play under the FIDE flag. This is life-threatening. So the problem with these situations is that they are so very complex. And I do share, of course, Jacob's point of view when he says we can't allow Russian sports heroes. Yes, of course, I understand that, yes. But how can we do that? You see, culture is the only thing that can help us here. Russian culture is what might save us in the end. There are so many Russians who oppose the war. There are so many Russians who hate what is happening, who despise their country for what it's doing. And they have voices. By silencing them, the dissidents will not be able to speak up. I mean, just imagine if we had banned Grishuk, he would never have had the chance to come up to the West and say, well, I am against, and to issue that letter. So there are many, many angles we have to look at. And I might have said wrong things here too. I mean, I think we all going to fall prey to emotions and things. But what I really like, getting back to the questions, is that we have fora like these, like what is ACP is giving you a platform to speak up, to talk, to discuss, and this is interesting. And I hope that by the end of today, the chess world has a better understanding of the positions. Maybe a few of us can also expand on our positions, meaning that we came into this with one idea and we come out of it with a more complex idea, not a different one. I'm just saying a more complex one, because complexity is really what characterized this situation, except from the fact, of course, that it is mass murder. It's there's no way. I mean, whatever the reasons that might have led the Russians to lose their temper, so to speak, there is no way you can justify what is happening in Ukraine. And of course, my wholehearted and full support goes to Ukraine and to Ukrainian people, especially. And not talking the Ukrainian institutions now, I'm talking the Ukrainian people who are suffering every day. So I'm not sure I answered your questions, but
yes, that's right. One positive note about chess community is that a lot of Ukrainian players been very active in social media. They put people together. They forced people to make some actions, and we do have Kirill Shevchenko, who put a lot of people together, and together with all the streamers, they raised more than $100,000 for charity, and this is truly the very nice gesture for chess community to raise a voice, to let people know that we do have the crisis and there are people in Ukraine suffering. And we also saw a heartbreaking image of the main coach of the national team of Ukraine being guarding his city with a gun. That was truly the heartbreaking news. And the photo, and we also know a lot of female players also being now in Ukraine and not moving from the country, or some of them are refugees, and we do know that men cannot leave the country. So my question goes to Mr. Daniel Gormally. As we know that you have published the article on ACP thoughts on Ukraine, what is your opinion where Ukrainian players are standing right now, how they are dealing this, and how do you think they can come back to competitive chess, as they are one of the best and strongest players in the team in the world?
Yeah, hi Kay, hi everybody. Thanks for inviting me to this very illustrious cast of people. Yeah, I mean, basically I wrote this article and I tried to sort of make this point that which Emil basically said is, we're coming from the West. We have a very kind of sort of strict view. I mean, my whole personal view about all these sanctions and everything is that we can't go to war with Russia. because we are risking nuclear war. You know, I mean, if it was another country that invaded Ukraine, we'd probably wipe them out because we wouldn't be scared. But Russia have nuclear weapons. So therefore, if we go to war with Russia, we're going to get destroyed. I mean, you have a personal investment in this yourself because you're Georgian. So Georgia is one of the countries that got invaded by Putin. You know, everybody agrees that it's kind of a pretty disgusting act. But at the same time, we can't go to war with Russia because they have nuclear weapons. So what we're doing is we're cancelling Russians. You know, that is really the only thing we can do. We're doing sanctions against oligarchs. We're basically saying you can't play under the Russian flag. Russian football teams are getting banned. Everybody's getting banned. So no more Russia. My personal view is this is effectively a war, not just between Russia and the West, but really a war between the West and countries like Russia and China and Saudi Arabia, who have a low regard for human rights. I think this is just a tip of the iceberg, that they have a very low regard for human rights, effectively. And, you know, we're limited in what we can do because we're a liberal, you know, we live in a liberal democracies. So we can't really do that much against these kind of people like Putin, who effectively is just willing to risk everything, or, you know, at least gives that impression. I mean, one thing that I would say out of all this is that Garry Kasparov is obviously looking very, very correct in everything he said about Putin. So he looks absolutely spot on. His whole career after chess has effectively been about trying to dismantle Putin. But at the same time, you know, we're kind of hypocrites in the West because, you know, we bomb Iraq, we bomb, Syria, we bomb Afghanistan and countries like that. And then, you know, do we get stopped from playing in chess tournaments, or do we get, you know, we don't, do we? I mean, currently Saudi Arabia is, attacking Yemen. Should we ban Saudi Arabia players? I don't know. So that would be my point, effectively.
Okay. Now it's time to discuss the topic, which is very important for chess society in general, because we do have two chess personas in the social media who really distract us by their statements. I'm starting a name, Sergei Karyakin, a Russian grandmaster who openly was supporting the war, and he never hesitates to share his private letter to the president, Putin.
I just stop you for a second here. Are we going to jump from thing to thing and then have a little nice speech for everything, and then at the end pretend we had a debate about something?
Go ahead. If you yes.
Emil said like 40 minutes ago a lot of.
Just one thing. Sorry. If you want to say something, maybe just let me know, and I will just let right away talk to you.
I sent you a message half an hour ago.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
I have raised my hand several times. Emil said a lot of things which were frankly outrageous, and then in the end they all build up to an argument against one Ukrainian guy on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And then we go to general speeches about things we already know. I'm okay to debate things. I'm okay to be respectful and friendly about it. But if we're going to sit here for many, many hours, we should talk about the real things, not about what countries should do or other things that happened in the past, or whether or not the destruction of Ukraine is technically a genocide, whether or not the Russian flag or the FIDE flag, whether that's really the most important thing of all I said. So we can have a debate, and I really want everyone to have a chance to say everything they mean and take their turns and everything. But just jumping from topic to topic, and then someone says a little bit. I'm a busy person, and it's a waste of time.
Go ahead. Please go ahead and
I don't want to be like overly outrageous, but this isn't a debate. And I'm sure Emil wants to be challenged on his view. I'm sure he wants to be smarter. And I'm sure that at the end of it, we won't agree, but everyone will
hard to have a
understand
debate
the
on
basis
Zoom,
of
though,
their
isn't it?
views better. So.
Okay, Jacob, please, you probably have some notes, and go ahead, we're listening.
No, Emil was saying we're a global organization. Nobody disputes this. But to some extent, these 190 members we have, a lot of them are islands with just a few chess players. Chess is still, to a huge extent, a European sport. So the fact that the rest of the world doesn't matter. We have some other big centers of chess, obviously. We have some South American countries, which are big. We have North America, which is entirely in line with the issue on this. And then we have Asia, where, frankly, they're just very far away and they don't care, and I don't blame them. But this thing, he starts with saying we are following the IOC recommendations, and as we all have seen on, this is just not the case. And then he's also saying, suddenly there's sanctions. Like, there's always been sanctions since 2014. There's a lot of things that just sort of avoiding the main issue here, which is, should Russians play in the candidates, which is really the one issue that we should be debating.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, well, I also want to, when Emil talks about that, this FIDE has not been Russia-centered. I mean, I think it's the sports organization who has ever been most linked to a regime, and a brutal regime is FIDE towards Russia. I mean, he thinks maybe in terms of chess, but we have to see it in terms of sports washing. I mean, well, we are getting people like Peskov and Shoigu gets credibility from being at chess events. I mean, it's less than a month ago that Dvorkovich was giving out awards to the Russian army. It sounds completely insane, but that's actually the case. Peskov has been at numerous world championship matches. Andrei Gureyev, the head of CEO of Fosat Group, was giving the trophy at the recent world championship match. He's also sanctioned. I think 9 of 18 board members of the Russian Chess Federation is sanctioned. I mean, this is completely insane. And it's also when we talk about bravery of Russian players. Okay, let's get some proportions here. Can we talk about bravery of Ukrainian players? I mean, some of them are building barricades, like the team captain from the European Championship. Or we can take Shukova, who is defending her city, literally, not by writing something with a pen. I mean, we need to have some proportions in this, but I think we have to have a principled debate, and decision is, are we gonna cut our ties to Russia, who has been controlling FIDE more and more for the last 40 years? I mean, I think, well, that we actually know all these oligarchs personally because of chess just gives it away.
Emil, the first question about candidates tournament.
Obviously, I'm here not to skip any questions, otherwise I wouldn't be here, as you know me. Taking questions from Jacob. Candidates, first of all, I'm a bit surprised that you say that we're here just to learn more about candidates. I think there's many aspects to this meeting, and in general, it was about participation of Russian players. Now, candidates, my opinion, as it stands for now, we have a case of Karyakin, which is reviewed by Ethics Commission, and we didn't hesitate for a minute to pass it to Ethics Commission once we learned all these outrageous things that he was promoting. Usually, Ethics Commission takes a few months to review it, but we explicitly requested them to have a just absolutely as possible as fast track, and they will have an answer by the end of this month, maybe even next week. I have to clarify that Ethics Commission is composed of members who are elected at General Assembly. They are independent body inside FIDE. Nobody, no FIDE management, no president or nobody can instruct them. 5 representatives from 5 continents. So their decision is cannot be impacted by the board, basically. So they're taking this decision, and we shall see what happens with Karyakin. Talking about Nepomniachtchi, at current, at least, I don't see a reason for him to be expelled obviously not to play under Russian flag, obviously not to play under the flag of the Russian Chess Federation, but I don't see a reason why he cannot play under FIDE flag. I also know the sentiment of the players who are about to participate, at least most of those who qualified, and they have absolutely no whatsoever problem to playing with Nepomniachtchi, who has never been, I don't know, a supporter of a regime or something. He has been also quite vocal in his personal blog and also in this open letter to Putin. Now, answering Peter, I fully agree that Russian Chess Federation is board of trustees or overviewing board, I don't remember how they call themselves, composed of 9 people in the sanction list. I agree with that, but what does it have to do with FIDE? If you mention Mr. Guriev, he was sanctioned just, 2 days ago or 3 days ago. Prior to that, he was never sanctioned, sorry. Yes, we clearly indicated as FIDE that we are not going to continue with any company which is in the sanction list. Go to the FIDE website. You don't see Fosagra. As long as people, our company related to people, they're in sanction list, they are off the contract with FIDE. Whether it's a running contract or where it's about to be signed a new one, it is terminated, full stop. We are very clear on that. We are losing money on that, but we're very consistent. Yes, I have to agree that for the Russian Chess Federation, it is a problem. It was not smart for them probably to have so many people of their higher political elite, I would call it. But the word elite is not matching well with these people, I'm afraid, but still being on the list. But at the same time, I see very almost nothing to do with FIDE. Yes, Djokovic lives in Russia, but look at his statements. Look at the statement of the chairman of United Russia, the Putin party, who is the ruling party in the parliament. It issued just an hour ago. I don't know if anybody of you saw it. He calls
Peter. Sorry, Peter goes the next to answer this.
He calls to expel Djokovic from Skolkovo, the innovation center which he is doing. He calls basically to chase him because he makes the quote says that Djokovic making anti-Russian statements at the moment when our soldiers risking their lives. So Djokovic is the only, just have to be very clear about that and very specific, is only person, let's say notable person in Russia who had, I don't know the good words, guts to actually claim that it's a war and he's against wars.
Peter, please. Sorry, Emil, I have to interrupt.
Sorry, it's not reasonable. Well, we saw his recent statement in the Skolkovo website. I forgot if it's today or yesterday, but it's a very, very nationalistic statement. It talks about a world without Nazis, and it talks about Russian sanctions against Russia being unjust and things like this. Well, you can read it. I had people read it to me who knows the language and the situation better. This idea that Djokovic is not Russian is unreasonable. And you mentioned Guriev. Well, this is typical sports washing, that we have been giving credibility to the Russian state with people like Peskov or Shoigu, or to their leaders of their state-owned companies. Just look at the list of where FIDE sponsors has been coming from. It's well, the most obvious sports washing that has seen. And you can argue this was a reasonable thing to do, to hope to put Russia on the right way. But obviously this has completely failed. And we have, well, I think we are all guilty and have been given credibility to a lot of these people and such. And that, well, I think has to change. And well, I think we have to cut our ties to Russia. And I think, well, that Emil says that the Russian Chess Federation and FIDE has nothing to do with each other. It's just, for me, an absurd statement.
Emil.
They have very close links, obviously.
Sorry, I have here to clearly disagree. I'm being in my position for over 3.5 years. I haven't ever seen Peskov or Shoigu on FIDE event. I just have to explicitly say, and if you catch me on being the same event, so go for that. No, never. Yes.
Have you sent congratulatory letters for a start? Have you published open letters from Putin on your website?
No, that's true. The letters from Putin congratulating for online Olympiads, the winners for online Olympiads, yes.
Or the invitation as well, for instance.
That's true.
Recording stopped.
You have to see things in context. If you have
don't see the context.
No,
of
but
having
sorry, don't
Putin
interrupt me. I did not
Hello,
interrupt you. Peter, I didn't interrupt you. We agreed that we don't interrupt each other.
Oh, you spoke for 2 hours. I mean,
No,
we have close.
No,
Anyway,
I'll interrupt.
So the point being as follows: we have to understand we either we are like saints or we are hypocrites. I mean, for 8 years, okay, there's some minimal sanctions which are imposed on Russia.
Recording in progress.
The whole world is going as it is. The diplomats are traveling, the businessmen, all businesses are in Russia functioning. All Western countries keep receiving gas and oil, and everything is going on. So now you request from chess, from 2014. I'm not talking about the war situation. Now you request from chess suddenly in 2020 not to have anything in Russia because Putin invaded Crimea in 2014. It's not how the world works, unfortunately. It's either the whole world is there, or chess, something that is supposed to build bridges, is suddenly seen as some instrument that has to be ahead of everyone. It just doesn't work this way. I think chess brought much more positive things by trying to connect people. And you see actually the chess world. Peter, you know so many Russian players, chess players. Are they good persons or not? Let's put it this way. Would you say that Russian people are bad people, chess people that you know, most of them?
Peter, go ahead.
Sorry. I need to finish on a very principle,
Okay.
and then I'll silence myself for a long time, for a very long time. But by this is something I have to do. About the particular players, I have to repeat to Jacob, because then he would be telling me that I'm not addressing this point. Let's take the much more murderous, bloody, long, worst thing which ever probably happened, World War II. I can take a player there like Bogolyubov, who was a player representing Germany, who was a member of NSDAP, who played under swastika and everything. And they did not expel him from tournaments because he never made statements. He never was like a pro-Hitler or anything. He was a chess player living in difficult times during war in that country. That's what happened. But we can go with further. I am sure both Jacob and Peter, they would know their countryman, by birth at least, Hjalmar Schacht, who was a famous economist and banker, who was the head of Reichsbank for many years, including the years of Anschluss in 1938, who only resigned in 1939. The guy who is credited, if you can call it so on, for building German Hitler economy in 1930s. He was a head of Reichsbank from 33 to 39. The guy, even at the Nuremberg, he was not convicted and he just continued the normal life. I mean, think about it. Now you want now to ban players who are playing chess for this reason. They cannot represent even FIDE, and you have very clear, even from the Western point of view. I'm not talking now about all these countries. And if you talk, India is far away, Indonesia is far away. It's not, if we will discuss in these terms, we would never make chess a global game. They are far away, they don't care. It's exactly what also we unfortunately have to say, that Judeo-Christian tradition doesn't care. They happen in Rwanda to kill each other, we don't care. They happen to I don't know. The cases are numerous, I don't want to name them. So I think it's the blaming collectively is bad. I think that I agree fully that Russian Chess Federation should not have had, and it's poor practice to have so many, call it, dignitaries of the kind. I reject the claims that FIDE is ruled by Russia. The very fact that we are actually rejected all Russian money, and we not only exist, but we continue to serve chess community, to continue with all our projects, educational, social, women in chess, and professional ones. That shows it very clearly. Sorry, I've been really for too long.
Yes, let's try to shorten time, because we have also Others talking. Jacob, you go first. Peter, you go next, please. And then Theodoros.
Very simply, Emil constantly answers different questions than what is posed to him. And for example, he now uses this whataboutism about aftermath of World War II. Now, we can at some point talk about what happens after Russia leaves Ukraine. And we can do it after that. And my opinions of that, what happens then, is very different from now. He constantly talks about punishing, even though Peter and I have very clearly stated, we're not punishing anyone, we're not hating anyone, we're not wanting to damage anyone on a personal level. But we do not think that this is an appropriate situation for Russia to do internal propaganda on the back of chess, with potentially a challenger to the World Championship as one thing. And we also previously have said about Olympiad for a long time, and only FIDE has made a change in their policy now. So this is the real question. Should chess be used as a propaganda tool in Russia to show Russian greatness? At this point, our opinion is no. And therefore, I think Theo had a really, really wonderful explanation of how players who want to participate can do that by renouncing their allegiance to Russia. And for me, that is an absolutely acceptable compromise, because my main concern here is that we cannot accept the destruction of a country as having nothing to do with us, which is basically what people like Dvorkovich and Grishtuk have said in statements, that the rest of us, it's not our country that is destroyed, we should just be quiet. And I don't accept that for a second.
Thank you, Jacob. Peter, please go.
Yeah, I also say that, well, chess is being used so much for propaganda in Russia. It's part of their story. But I mean, we all know the players, and I think they're all sympathetic on a personal level, and I think they think it's horrible. But the point is they're being used for propaganda. I mean, look at all the pictures with Putin, the national teams, and many players has posted them online on the social media. They might be forced to it, and such. Also, well, Emil mentions Jaromir Pomyachi. He's sponsored by Szymanowski, who has Simmerland. Well, he might disagree with the videos that Simmerland makes, where thousands of people are praising Putin, both before and after the war. But he adds credibility to it. And, well, he's representing Simmerland when he's playing for the World Championship and such. So was Goroshkina. I mean, well, they are, well, being sponsored by obvious Putin propagandists who are supporting the war and such. Well, we shouldn't let that happen. I mean, we should also protect them from, well, being in the squeeze that they are. And I think this idea of what people mean as individuals is not so relevant when they're being used for propaganda by the state. And this is obvious that, well, Putin has used FIDE and Russian chess players for propaganda. That is obvious. So has Peskov, etc. and such. And so has these Russian state companies that are now sanctioned. They have used it to better their image and to get, well, to be at events, and it shouldn't be like that.
Anyone wants to answer or add something? Mr. Theodoros?
Yes, I want to refer to two things. One, this matter of Arkady Dvorkovich, and the other is some about Mr. Daniel Gormally and Yuri Garrett spoke before about West and East. I want to say this because also now I'm reading this news even from BBC that the ruling party in Russia are calling Dvorkovich a traitor or something like this. So I want to say this, that Arkady Dvorkovich, he came to chess in 2018. I mean, not to came to chess, to FIDE. He was also in chess before under factions. So when Arkady came to FIDE, he was already before and very near Deputy Prime Minister of Russia, in much more political exposed than is today. So all the people that were in the FIDE General Assembly, they evaluate this, his positions, and they vote for him. So, I mean, the majority vote for him, no matter, let's say, who is the majority and what any of us could support. So means that he elected, and everybody knows who is Arkady. He was not hidden he's elected by the majority. And he's elected by a big part of the West majority. Because we must say what the truth. Then he started to rule FIDE as president and all these years. During all these years, I think that all we agree that he win points. I mean, in this, he was not controversial. I think that personally, he never used his position to make propaganda for his country. And he tried to be peaceful with everybody and find solutions. So if we don't have today incidents, I think all will agree that he is a good president for FIDE. Today, he's facing this difficult situation and he has to balance between FIDE, his country, other things, IOC possible, and it's a very difficult situation for him. So I think that this moment, and taking account that in 3 months we will have FIDE Congress, FIDE Assembly, that can discuss all this matter, I think that we must give him a little bit space to decide what he wants to do in this moment. I don't think that Arkady Dvorkovich should be now our, let's say, target when he has all his problems that by himself and by his positions. But I really think that the next 1-2 months we will have many things to happen on this, and the situation will be very clear. Because now, I mean, the events are running very fast. And the final judgment of any FIDE president is the member federations, that they will decide the fate of any of us in any administration. This is one part from Arkady Dvorkovich. The other part, referring to Yuri and Daniel, what they said. First of all, I think that we didn't come here to make, let's say, a geopolitical discussion, because I start to say West and East. If I start to comment on this, what means West and East? We are not a lot of East here, because except that FIDE is a sports organization and federation, this is other matter, but you referred for wars, for this, for East. What I know today is that there was a resolution in UN about this invasion, and 180 countries vote on this resolution from West and East. Around 20-30 abstain, and only 3-4 support Russia. So what is the difference between West and East on this matter, geopolitical? So this I don't understand. West and East took the same position through their official representatives in the political issue. I don't speak about this, but because Daniel, he also mentioned to the political issue. FIDE is different matter, it's a sports organization. And what each federation will say is different thing. The other, I want to say to Yuri, you said that it's difficult for Russian Grandmaster to play with the FIDE flag or to apply on this, so maybe we must be more flexible. So I want to ask you this question. Ukraine is a great nation of chess. The same as Russia.
I never said this. Apologies. You can go to the recording.
You didn't say it.
Quote me right.
You said that it's very difficult to ask them.
No, I said that for a Russian grandmaster to play under the FIDE flag is a bold move in itself, by itself. This was what I meant.
Yes.
Okay.
So you agree on this or not? This I didn't understand, because my feeling that what you and Daniel says that my feeling is that you believe that they can still play with the Russian flag.
No, absolutely no, never, ever. No, of course not.
Okay, sorry.
Zero.
Okay, sorry.
Zero.
Sorry,
nothing associated with Russia or Belarus until the war goes on, and then we'll see, is completely out of the question. Apologies.
Okay. Sorry if I understood wrong this question. Thank you, Keti.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wants to?
Yes, I asked.
Okay,
before.
please.
There's one thing I've been thinking very much, and I know that by saying this I might be heavily criticized, but it goes back to Jacob's idea that Russians cannot have a national hero. Now, while I would not be against having, of course, no, I favor making sure that Russian individual players can play unless they commit some war-related crime. I have doubts whether they can play at the candidates, because there is no way to disattach them to their country. Let's pretend that a player named Yuri Garrett from Russia wins the candidates and then beats Magnus. Wow. Then what? Isn't this a Russian world champion? Although he played under FIDE flag. So while I think they can play in almost every competition, I do think that Russian nationality, or at least it wouldn't be enough for you to play with the FIDE flag in the candidates. I think that if you want to play in the candidates, you would need to have a different flag, meaning going to another country, which is a very bold move. And I know this is a very strong position, and I really think that this would be my suggestion. Yes, you can play, but you have to go to some other federation. The FIDE flag is not enough. Because, as I said, there would be no way to sever the ties with your country. Whereas if you decide to be represented by Scotland or Iceland or Italy, whatever, that would be different. That would be different because it's a much bolder move. And regarding, I think Theo's comment on geopolitical discussion was maybe misinspired by the fact that I didn't express myself well and he understood a different thing. But this is a geopolitical discussion. Of course it is. And it is very important that we Westerners, we also think that the world is huge. I understand. And of course, I learned this from, I cannot be learned on anything, on everything. So that the West and East through their official representative condemned, I learned this from you, and thank you for teaching me something. But I also wish to talk about Arkadi's statement. First of all, I want to personally endorse him as a man. And I want to make it clear here, there is a strong personal endorsement to him as a man. He has been as useful to FIDE as everything. Perfection doesn't exist, but wow, if he's effective, and he is clever and bold and a lot. He's by far the best FIDE president I've ever experienced. Having said this, I also have a feeling, if you read the Mother Jones bits and the Russian interview, the two resonate so differently that, well, I can't help asking myself, is the Russian interview kosher? Is it really his statements? Was he forced to release them? Was he under any kind of pressure? Was it just concocted by somebody else? I don't know. And I'm not saying it happened. And the only one who can ever tell us what is going on is Arkady, and maybe he can't even, because he might have a gun at his head. So I tend to share Theodoros' idea that it's only 3 months to the assembly. I don't think Arkady is our main concern. As a person, you should also play under the FIDE flag too, as a FIDE president. So he should do that as a start. He should play under the FIDE flag in FIDE too. And but take a minute to consider the very difficult situation he is in and how Russian propaganda and misinformation may have affected a few of the statements that are purported to be his. All has to be fact-checked, and I am sure that if you ask him, he will of course say, yes, of course I released it. He can't give us another answer, not today, not tomorrow. I mean, don't forget he has been a close associate to Putin for a long time, And then, okay, things evolved and he got into different things, but he's a brave man. He's a brave man and he deserves credit for being brave. And I will accept criticisms by anyone saying that the fact that the FIDE president has to take some sort of balance exercise to measure his word is already difficult for FIDE, and reason to think, yes. Is this enough to take a decision when we're only 3 months away from a Congress that can take a strong and bold decision? I don't know. Can we call the Congress before? Maybe yes. Maybe yes, we can have an online Congress. But I wouldn't certainly take any action against a man who has done, I would say, better than any other FIDE president in my time. I don't remember Ove, so I know he was a great president. So
thank you very much. Yuri, anyone wants to make a comment? Daniel, please.
Yeah, in regards to, I mean, there seems to be a lot of finger pointing in terms of like FIDE, like the bad guy and everything. But one thing I would say is that, for example, they're not alone. You know, I mean, the British government have aligned themselves with all these super rich oligarchs for years. We've taken money from them, not just the British. And, you know, we knew that they were corrupt. We knew that they were, you know, people like Abramovich were getting their money from very dodgy sources, probably aligned. You know, I mean, I'm aware, for example, that high-ranking officials in FIDE took bribes from Russian, you know, from Russian money. So that's something as well. But yeah, I think as far as, you know, I do think there will be a resolution of this crisis at some point. So therefore, we need to look to the future and say, well, you know, if Russia do agree a peace treaty, I mean, that would be an interesting question. If they do agree some kind of peace treaty with the Ukrainians and pull out of that country, because it looks like they're failing. It looks like their invasion is failing. You know, then you've basically got a situation where Russia is the most dominant force in world chess. It's almost like banning Kenyan distance runners or, you know, Indian cricketers. So you've got so many Russian chess players. It's very hard to just say, look, you can't play for Russia. So what's going to be the resolution then? And also the question would be, is Karyakin playing in the candidates or not? In my opinion, he should not play in the candidates. I think what he said is outrageous. It's inflammatory. He comes across as an incredibly entitled human being, not a very pleasant person at all. And therefore, I think he should be thrown out of the candidates, and that should be a resolution. As far as the FIDE president is concerned, I think he should be removed from office as well. He's a Russian. He has political ties with Putin. I don't care if he's a nice guy. I'm sure you can get lots of other nice guys in. You just get rid of him. You know, I mean, you just got to show some strength in the situation. Basically, that would be my point.
Thank you, Daniel. Peter, please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to say, well, again, if it's Russian chess players or Russian officials, we talk about how difficult it is for them. We need to have some perspective. I mean, Ukrainian chess players, officials are not allowed to leave the country because they have to defend it. They're being bombed. Look at the pictures from Mariupol or Kiev, for instance, Odessa. We cannot compare these things. I have to say that, well, I feel, you know, I hope the best for all my friends in Russia, but all those I feel pity and really pray for these days is the atrocities, what happens in Ukraine, and that's where our thoughts should go.
Emil, please.
Well, I rarely or very rarely agree with Peter, but here I'm fully aligned with him. Although the topic of the discussion today is possible consequences for Russian players, but Ukrainian players deserve not only sympathy or empathy, but also some concrete actions, and we're fully aligned. I already publicly stated, and I'm going to repeat that as a head of Global Strategy Commission of FIDE, we are going to issue a recommendation to provide wildcards for Ukrainian players for all the major FIDE events where wildcards exist, as such as FIDE World Cups for men and women, for Open and Women, and the Grand Swiss. And at the same time, we are not going to limit to that only to it. There are several projects we are now developing. It would include the help for Ukrainian chess kids who also had to evacuate to leave the country to stage the chess camp specifically for Ukrainian kids. Maybe it could be in Poland or another European country where they found a safe shelter. Also, we started actually, FIDE Women's Commission had a fundraising last week to fundraise for Ukrainian players, and we're going to support veterans from Ukraine. I think here it's very important to understand that whilst we discuss and debate very important topics, the war is ongoing and people are being either their houses destroyed, they have to flee, mostly inside their countries if we talk about players, but still it's very hot topic, and we should not forget, with all the emotions towards Russian players, that Ukrainians are those who first to suffer. And one final point about the banning players altogether, many of you may not know, but many of you may. There have been ongoing discussion a few years back and forth about Iranian players, what to do with Iranian players who are boycotting and not playing Israeli players and so on, teams. And I have to say that every time when I was involved, I keep expressing the same opinion. You should not ever punish the players, or you do not call it a punishment, but it is a punishment, whatever. If it is not direct, but it's indirect, it's still a punishment. You should not punish players for their government. When we talk about Yuri had very wise things to share, but one thing I disagree with him. He says Russian players despise their countries. They don't despise their countries, these players. They despise their government. Let's not mix the government and the country. The country, and we should not be blaming players for the countries. They can despise their government, and unfortunately, the government does deserve it. The same actually case was for me about Iranian players. Never in any discussion I advocated, and on contrary, I always explicitly stated it was before Firouzja leave, after Firouzja leave, doesn't matter, that the players should not be victims of the policy of their government. You can ban federation, you can punish them various ways, but not the players. Thank you.
Yes, just a second to tell you, yes, of course, my visual was, but of course, when I say country, I meant the government, and I was imprecise, and yeah, sure. But do you have any comments about the idea that we should not allow players to play in the candidates under just the FIDE flag, because this would not sever the ties with the country? I mean, this is a very concrete and bold proposition.
I see your point. I see your point, and I understand the idea. At the same time, think about it differently. So by that, you are trying to, let's say, to remove some sort of propaganda, but at the same time, you are basically ruining the top player's life, right? Because he cannot stay in Russia, so he would have to move probably with part of his family or entire family. I don't know what's about his elderly parents and so on. So you basically ruin his life for the fact that he is connected to the federation, because you don't want, even being under neutral federation, for him.
I'm sorry, you're saying you're ruining a man's life because he cannot play one tournament.
Yes, exactly.
While we have a lot of people who are being literally bombed.
Yes,
come off.
This is a bit. This goes
off it.
No, but we agreed not to interrupt. I never interrupt anyone in this discussion, right? We agreed. I think it was your idea, Jacob. So please don't do. You do it for a second time. Once again, it doesn't necessarily have to come one at the expense of another. It's very clear that what's happening to Ukrainian players is a tragedy. Should Russian players suffer? Should we double down and to have more people suffering for this as FIDE? I don't think so. What is our role? Are we and Theo had it very clear? Are we a political organization that should be, let's say, imposing these things on and teaching countries how to live, or should we care first and foremost about well-being of people who are in this world? This is a tricky question. You can once you punish the federation, I'm totally for it. go and punish for federation. Unfortunately, these things are interrelated. There is no simple solution. If it would be a simple solution, we would not be discussing it for an hour and a half and still not coming to any concrete point. But I would, I appreciate all the comments. I think all of them, even the comments I disagree, they're very logical. It's not like they're absurd. Maybe some of my words, like Jacob saying they're absurd or obsolete. I don't find his statements. They have their grounds to it. Some of them I just disagree. It happens.
Thank you very much.
Emil, if I can, just I really have to take sides with Jacob here. I mean, we're not talking destroying the chess player's ability to play. He can play any tournament. But the candidates is aiming at the World Championship. And I think that the world would suffer a lot more if this Yuri Yurevich would win the World Championship rather than this guy being forced to leave Russia if he wants to win the World Championship. I mean, it's unfortunate. I understand that this poor Yuri, he studied all his life. He wants to become world champion. He has his chance, but yeah, Americans like to say it like this: shit happens, and I would say that quite some shit happened here, and I really think that it would be bad for the world at this moment in time to let a Russian become a world champion for chess. I don't know why, if you ask me, but it really doesn't sound good to me. So if he's Russian and he takes a stand against what is happening, then of course we let him play. But if he just kept the milder idea that for a couple months he gets a FIDE flag.
Sorry, isn't that just making it too complicated? You have to basically say, I mean, my point would be I would get rid of Karyakin because I think he's very clearly pro-Putin, and I think that's just crossing the line and it's just annoying too many people. But I think you're getting into very vague territory there when you're basically saying, well, he has to leave Russia, and then I do think we're close to an end game. Hopefully we're close to an end game in this conflict, because I think that's what everybody wants. And then what do you do after that? Do you have Russians are still banned in, say, years' time? Then we got a very difficult situation. So you're saying that Russians can't become world champion unless they basically say, look, I'm anti-Putin, which you can't really do anyway if you live in Russia. And yeah, it just sounds too complicated to me. I think you have to make very clear. I mean, essentially what the chess world is doing is essentially just following what the West is doing. We're just following, the West is doing sanctions against Russia. So we're just doing that. But I think the issue as regards to Karyakin, I think there's very clear grounds to throw him out of the candidates. And I don't think he's good enough to win it anyway. But if he was, then yeah, I mean, then you got, because also Magnus might not play the next World Championship match, so he could end up becoming automatic world champion.
And, yes, thank you. Yeah.
If I may short reply to Yuri's comment, let's not talk about some I don't know, fiction person. Let's talk about Nepomniachtchi. Let's make a Nepo. He made a statement. He made it clearly and unequivocally. Now, I, on the contrary, think that if the guy suddenly becomes world champion and in a position, because as a world champion, it gives you a certain protection, he can express his thoughts. The thoughts of his get more value because he is now in position to express himself as a world champion. World champion Nepomniachtchi claims such and such things. So this should not be underestimated. I think that's an importance that can come from that. Technically, I surely see what you come up with, but I think we should think about it in a very subtle way. Once again, if we go that far, we can come to some sort of crisis that would never be resolved. Do we want to alienate completely, let's say, Russia on all fronts? Are we not sorry, for example, that in many countries, I would not name many, but still, the society is already in a sort of a limbo, you can't get them off it. Are we not sorry that we cannot really talk to North Korean people? Maybe they would be willing to be a part of society. See South Korea is as good and understandable for us as we are from them. Okay, they have Eastern mentality, but still, they're part of this Western civilization already, more or less. So are we really feeling that alienating such a country as Russia, with the traditions, with culture and so on, is good in a long-term strategy? Because it happens on all the fronts. It happens now in Cardiff when they don't play Tchaikovsky. I mean, how far we will get with that? What will happen with it? We see that already Grand Chess Tour, Magnus, they don't invite Russian players. And basically that already has an impact on those who are expressing and always expressed very clearly. Daniel Dubov has expressed against Crimea, which is a crime in Russia, but he expressed himself in 2018 immediately after winning the title. And actually, just incidentally, the fact that he became world rapid champion gave him the platform to speak, right? In 2018. So you
gave him a warning, right?
Sorry?
You gave him a warning for that, right?
No, I didn't give him a warning.
That's what he said. Anyway.
No. So it is very important to relate to these things in proportional, how would I say, in an atmosphere, because we have to also think that we do not want to alienate the entire country. So how to find this balance is a very tricky question. It's not a question that's going to be resolved here, but it's still, let's say, any sort of black and white solution wouldn't work here, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Emil. We're now very close to 2 hours, so I would like to just make this open statement for everyone. Please take your time. Jacob goes first, next Theodoros, and then Peter, please keep this.
Okay, first off, I think everyone agrees that Dorkuch is a good man, but if you see his statement yesterday, it refers to Nazism. There's only one reason to do that. That is because Russian propaganda constantly talk about Ukraine being run by Nazis. It also says that he has no respect for foreign companies. How that will affect FIDE's company finances in the future is a big thing. But the main point I wanted to take about this is when Emil say, oh, a Russian world champion could, make the world a better place and build bridges to everywhere and so on. We see here that an extremely powerful and rich man with a really strong moral compass is making statements, or at least not denying that these are his statements, that are simply outrageous. So this illusion that somehow a Russian world champion would, start to make everything better and so on, is an illusion. What we have seen here today is from Sutovsky, who is employed in FIDE, which is a federation with English as its main language, who posts lots and lots of messages on Facebook, mainly in Russian, that he is finding every kind of possible way to explain continued tie with Russia, because as Optan Sinclair said, it's impossible to make a man understand something if his employment is based on him not understanding it. This is simply bigger than chess. Chess is not going to solve this conflict. Chess is not going to be the main deciding thing in this conflict. However, we should pull our weight, and we should make sure that we find a balanced way, and it could be in many different ways. I think the ECU has done a fantastic job. Thank you, Theo, in finding a way of how to deal with this situation now, while it's ongoing, and we probably will be ongoing for a long time. Whether or not there are boots on the ground in Ukraine or not, there will be an international crisis for a long time. However, talking about other people's situation afterwards, or Iranians who don't want to play something, that's a whataboutism. Had nothing to do with people being gunned down in the street by foreign military. It's simply not comparable, and it's really not what it's about. It's not about punishing individuals, not at all. It's about not assisting the Russian internal propaganda machine in any possible way.
Thank you very much. Theodoros, please.
Yes, Keti. From my side, and this is you're going to say that as ECU, we will continue to monitor the situation and see all the updates and decisions that making, and we will continue to have the same stance. We advise all our members. We ask continuously if they have to propose something to. We are in continuous consultation, and we will keep the same road with international sports community, with IOC. We will continue to take any decision needed without any hesitation. Second, one question I didn't answer about players that make these statements, like Karyakin, like anyone. It's a very basic thing. Patriot, everybody has the right to be, to love his country, to want to defend his country, to want to promote his country. What is not allowed in chess is nationalism. And nationalism, all know that the difference between patriotism and nationalism, that in nationalism, you hate the other countries. This, it doesn't allow for a sportsman. So ECU is clear for this. Who is promoting nationalism and aggression should take sanctions. It's different thing, the patriotism. Last, I think we need to be very careful about what we do with the matter of FIDE President and FIDE Council. Everything is going to be judged with our member federation very soon. But at the same time, there are so many indicators and parameters in this situation that we cannot foresee what will happen the next day. So, and the most important role of all of us is to keep united the chess world and after the crisis. Because I want to say that really, we are in danger. I mean, to come one day to serious divisions. Because if from any side are coming in front the most fanatic, the most strict, that don't understand from sports and they want to make policy, this one day can divide us. And this is, we should avoid, and we try also to communicate with the most moderate people in our sports world from any side. Thank you, Keti.
Thank you very much. Please, Peter.
I very much agree with the previous two talkers. Thanks to Jacob and to the ECU. Well, I think this sports washing of Russia has to stop. And this is what has been done a lot. Well, chess cannot have this close ties. It has to Kremlin, has been praising the Kremlin, doing advertisement for it as well. We can't have their companies that has helped build the Russian economy with the consequences it had and such. So, no, I think we believe in sanctions, and for a reason, that this war has to stop. When this war hopefully stops, then we have to look at the situation again. But when the brutal killings are going on in Ukraine, sanctions are necessary. And I think we have to give our part and, for instance, not have sort of milder versions than the IOC recommends, because exactly of our history. So I think chess also has to do our parts in the sanctions.
Thank you very much. Yuri, would you like to give some statement? This is the final chance. You're once again muted.
I'll use my last few minutes just to thank you all for coming here. I think the ACP provided a good service here by putting different views and allowing a very civilized discussions among individuals with different viewpoints. I wish to stress that any idea that I put forward is not, it's just for the sake of widening perspective. I am not pushing through any idea. The situation is complex. What I do personally for helping the Ukrainians is a different matter. And I'm pretty sure that everybody else here is helping as much as I do. But then when it's political organizations, it's completely different. It's, you have to think, you have to talk, you have to share views. This is so very important, because if you don't share views, you get into a conflict. If you get into a conflict, the ultimate resolution of a conflict is war, which is what is happening right now. So the most important thing for everyone here is to focus, to think, to listen, to consider, to balance, and to try to do the best. And I hope that this ACP initiative has been appreciated by everybody, and hopefully we will meet again.
Thank you very much. Please, Daniel, your final statement.
Yeah, I'd just like to say what I was saying earlier. I mean, I don't think that this is just isolated to Russia. I think there's a lot of countries in the world that have a very poor regard for human rights. And this could be an ongoing issue. Now, the situation in Ukraine will hopefully calm down, but we could look very ridiculous talking about, sitting here talking about who can play in chess tournaments, when if the situation descends and we have something like Putin decides to try and invade a NATO country, which I could see happening. So that's a very scary situation. So I think this is, even though maybe it's not a geopolitical discussion, this is effectively far more important than, moving chess pieces around the board. So I do think there needs to be some clarification, because I think there's going to be a situation where, there's a lot of countries which have a very low regard for human rights, and they kind of have an advantage over us in, and as far as like Ukrainian players are concerned, I do feel very sorry for them. And hopefully this can be resolved soon, because it's really a very sad situation. But at the same time, we are very hypocritical in the West, Keti, because we invade countries, we bomb countries. And somebody said earlier that I'm talking Putin propaganda. Well, maybe I am. But effectively, where do you draw the line? I think this is very unclear. But at the moment, we in chess are effectively taking our guidelines from the political leaders in America and in England. Well, effectively America, because America is NATO, effectively. So it's really this whole wider war. This war from Russia with Ukraine isn't about Ukraine, really. It's about Russia snubbing to the USA and saying, look, we can do what we like. That's effectively what Putin, he's like a giant troll. He's effectively a giant troll, and he's turned Russia into a giant troll, and he's dragged all these chess players into it. They must feel terribly ashamed and embarrassed. I don't feel as sorry for them as I do for the Ukrainians, but at the same time, you do feel sorry for those ones, people like Grishchuk, who are clearly very affected by this whole thing. And, it's a very, very sad situation.
Thank you very much for this statement, Daniel. And finally, Emil, it's you can take your time.
Thank you, Keti. First of all, I'd like to appreciate ACP's initiative. I think it's very useful at this time to let people express their opinion, to have a discussion, to have criticism of what FIDE is doing, what's happening in the chess world. We are experiencing the crisis which nobody of us have seen in our lifetime. Since World War II, there was nothing even close to that, I believe. We have to appreciate the complexness of the situation, and that's why to hear opinions from left and right, from east and west. I would say that FIDE is in a very difficult spot here, and that's why we not only taking decisions, but we listen and we take a lot of consultations inside and also outside. For 10 days, we had 2 FIDE council meetings only to decide on pending and important matters. The exchange of opinions is important. The situation is changing by the day as well. So it's not exactly that the decision or even the stance of each of us, which is actual today, would necessarily remain intact in 1 week or in 2 weeks. So I would say that any sort of hasty decisions or claims and statements should be subjected to review with how the situation develops. One thing, if there is a truth and there are chances that it happens, and then we see how to reestablish what should be, because we could see the situation moving in this direction, but we could see situation developing in much worse direction. I appreciate things which have been expressed even when I was interrupted and not allowing me to complete my thoughts. Anyways, I was the one who spoke for longer times than anyone, and I appreciate it, and I'm sorry for that. But please also understand that the onus is on FIDE to come up with decisions, to explain its position, to share the vision we have, at least we have at the moment. It's not, and it never has been our aim to prove that, we are the smartest guy, we analyze all the factors and so on. But at the end of the day, there are people who actually have to take these decisions. Actually, the decisions are taken by people who are elected by General Assembly. I disagree, and often always disagreed with Peter Heine, is that employers should not express their opinion, because actually employers, the management, I would say, they're those who are working every day, and contrary to the board members who are on a voluntary base, we are doing just every day's work, and we're inside of it, and that's why sometimes we have more information and more contacts with either with National Chess Federation or with players or with other actors. At the same time, whatever decision is taken, it should be understood that it could be attacked from left or right. Some people, and I hear a lot of people being already expressing their disagreement, how comes the Olympiad without Russia? Others saying, how come Russians keep playing? And the chess world, it always was full of people, of thinking people. Sometimes they're thinking in opposite directions, but we could see that these discussions are necessary to find common ground, to learn a bit more about each other's position, to think, maybe to find, not necessarily to agree. Let's say today we would not agree with anything or with something, but some grain of thought, idea, something that is going to change your opinion, it's still you get from these discussions, and these bits end up to help making better decisions. And I like to thank you all for those who just contributed with their wisdom, or those who were, even if critical, but surely it's clear where they came from and what the idea was. And once again, I just want to reiterate my readiness to meet for such meetings from time to time, especially now in this crisis situation, to listen, to share, maybe to explain how we see it, but also to listen what you think about it. One thing which I think is essential still is not to be limited by this European way of thinking, because we have to listen to others. It's not true to say that other countries are not too far to understand or something. We have to feel how people in India think, how people in South America think, how people in Africa think, because it's all, the chess world is more than that. Yes, there are some federations with very few members, that's true, but most of federations, or most of countries, and definitely all the continents have active representatives, and we need to hear to all these opinions. Thank you very much, and sorry for taking more time than I probably was due to.
Okay, the final Peter is raising his hand.
No, well, it's just that, Emil says we should listen to what other countries said, but as the EU pointed out, there is a very clear vote in the UN defining that, and I think, repeating false arguments makes no sense, but that's a different story.
Okay, thank you so much for all the participants to being part of this discussion. It truly takes more time that we were given, and thank you very much for your time, first of all, to take a part of it and share your opinion. Once again, Emil Sutovsky, Yuri Garrett, Theodoros Tsorbatzoglou, Peter Heine Nielsen, Jacob Aagaard, and Daniel Gormally was the guests, and this panel discussion was organized by ACP. I am Keti Tsatsalashvili, and I had this honor to be the host of this discussion. And first of all, we really need tomorrow to be peaceful for not only Ukrainians, but also for the world. And my heart goes to all Ukrainian people. And let's hope that we will wake up tomorrow in the better life and reality. Thank you very much to our viewers on Twitch ACP channel, and also ChessBase India, who was broadcasting this stream on their channel. So let's hope for the best. And for that's it for today. And thank you everyone once again. And
Yeah, and
see
just
you
stay
next time.
tuned because ACP will probably be hosting other events. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.